Hi everybody, welcome back to Facebook Live Q&A. For those of you who are returning, thank you. And for those of you who are new to this, let me just take a minute and explain what we're doing. So I created my Rebecca's Inner Circle as kind of a safe place for a community of like-minded people to come together and talk about, spiritual, paranormal things where, it feels very inclusive and supportive. And so we started Facebook Live where you guys get to write in any of your questions and hopefully I can answer them based on my knowledge over the years of doing this work. So the questions are typically more universal in nature, generalized, not personalized readings. Sometimes I am moved to share a psychic hit or guidance I'm getting in the moment. But I let Spirit decide that. So anyways, we're just going to roll right into it, and we'll start with Hannah.
Yeah, so our first question comes from Sharon, and she asks, are there days when you do a group session or a live audience event that you feel less connected to Spirit? She's saying that for most days when she's with her clients, connecting is fine, but sometimes she feels a little spacey.
Yeah, okay, that's a great question. So for those of you who are doing this work, and for those of you who aren't, who are just curious how this works, as long as I've done my part to properly prepare and ensure that it's not me, as for the reason being I'm grounded or disconnected, what I have come to learn is that it can be a few things. Sometimes when you feel spacey or Spirit feels really far away, it's because the spirits really are far away. So some spirits are really skilled at projecting their energy into this realm, and so it's loud and clear, and it's like talking to somebody who is sitting next to you in the same room. Other spirits, their energy is more pulled back. Sometimes it's because they've evolved to the higher heavens, and it's harder for them to dip down into the lower, denser vibration. Sometimes their personality, they're just a quieter, more passive energy. And so it takes a stronger spirit to help assist them. And if that doesn't happen, then it feels very distant. The other thing I've learned, because this was happening for me a few times, and I worked with a healer on this, and she explained it perfectly, was that I was being thrown into a fog. It was like, she said there was a fog over my telepaths, which is my third eye, because darker entities did not want me to see truth. They didn't want me to read. And so they were basically making it impossible for me to read. So she would clear that up, and then the next day I'd go back to readings, and they were crystal clear and loud, and it felt like I was a lot more connected. So I would tell you, if this is happening for you, just make sure you're doing your part, and then, command and demand in the name of the light, in the name of love, which is God or source, that you are cleared any and all negative energies or entities trying to interfere with your divine purpose to be released and sent back to the light. And try it from that point of view. And again, just make sure you're really super grounded. Because if you're grounded, your chakras are going to be aligned and centered and open, and reading will be a lot easier.
Thank you. Thanks. So this is kind of a two-part question from Deborah and Sharon. They ask, did truly like evil people, murderers, abusers, in this life, did they agree to play that role before they came in, or was there something more dark in the mix there, and how would one tell the difference?
So the basic way to answer this question is we've talked about soul contracts, and yes, that is definitely, sometimes we sign up to be of service to others where we take on a role that's going to challenge them to grow. And sometimes you are the murderer and sometimes you're the victim, but there really is no victim when you start talking about soul contracts because you willingly signed up for that role. But it looks like you're playing that role. Anyways, so yes, sometimes they are just doing exactly what they agreed to do prior to incarnating to give the other person an opportunity to learn some lesson in this. Sometimes what I have found is it's not that, it's that they got disconnected from their higher self and they start operating from their lower self, which can easily be possessed or attacked by darkness. You can call it, demonic energy, and it's free will. And so they end up making horrible choices, which negatively impact and hurt others. And, with that, if that happens, there is karma. So they're not off the hook, and they may be in this lifetime, but not once they return to spirit.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So, sorry, I'm getting stuck here. Irene is asking about the day her husband passed. He had dementia, and she's wondering if it's possible for spirits to still hear their living loved ones, even if they're unresponsive or they have some sort of illness that's preventing them from being present.
Yes, I just had a group where the mom passed away, and the first thing she said was she wasn't able to communicate, and they hold my throat, and that's how I sensed that. But her presence was, her consciousness was aware and in the room, but she herself wasn't trapped in her body, but she could feel the love, and she could hear and see everything going on around her. And so the answer is yes. Usually before a loved one passes on, they have this moment where they dissociate from the physical body. Their soul hasn't fully moved on to the other side, to the light, but they're still in the space and very much aware. And more than anything, it's not what you're saying or what you're doing. They pick up on the feeling. So it's your intention. So you may be sitting by someone's bedside and you don't have the words because you're so in shock and fear and shut down. But your intention is, you want to be present to them, or how much you love and care about them, and you're going to miss them. Spirits tune into that intention. So really, that's what matters. And yes, they are aware.
Thanks. So this question comes from Rebecca, and she wants to know, she's wondering how to tell the difference between a message from spirit and a message from your own ego.
So, okay, the best way I can help you better understand the difference between mind and, which is some ego, and higher self or outside divine guidance would be if the thought comes to you out of the blue. Okay, so you're walking down the street and you think of your brother and you have a bad feeling, right? And the next thing you know, 5 minutes later, you get a phone call that something horrible happened to your brother. That's a divine thought. It came out of nowhere, and it wasn't a trailed thought. Okay, so a trailed thought would be you're thinking about one thing, which leads to another, which leads to, oh, that reminds me of my brother and this horrible thing that happened, right? That's your mind building on a story and making something up. So out of the blue is a divine thought. Trailed is a ego thought. The other thing is divine thoughts are simple truth. It's not complicated. It's more the universal truths, okay? So complicated, or ego thoughts are complicated. They're judgment. They're stories we tell in our heads. They become, just something that we make up. So that's more or less how I know. And the other thing is, once you get really in tune with how your guidance works, you'll know. Mine was very sing-songy. It was like poems in my head or song lyrics. That's not how I think. So I knew when that started happening, came through my writing. I'm like, this is not me. And that was my guardian angel, and at one point my grandmother, who was my guide. So you can just tell a difference in tone and in structure, like how they're communicating with you, if it's yours or if it's not yours.
So John asks if you can discuss more about the process of enlightenment for the masses into the fifth dimension. If you can touch on what's happening and if it can be measured at all.
Well, just like love can't be measured, it's a feeling, right? You can't measure this stuff, but it's truth. It doesn't take away from love is real. You can't see it, right? But you know it, and you've experienced it, and you feel it. So the same with this. So we're in an ascension period, and for those of us who want to expand and ascend higher in our own spiritual gifts, because we all have them, we are being given the opportunity. And if you can surrender your own ego's attachment to the outcome, what that looks like, then it's going to be a pretty painless process. Sometimes we get stuck, we want to control, or we want to figure it out on a mind level, and that's where you trip yourself up. You get in your own way. So the ascension process, really, fifth dimension is the place that we go when we're in the spirit world. But we're bringing heaven to earth, and you don't have to wait till you die to have that experience. There's a lot of contrast in the three-dimensional earth world. That's why we're here. We learn best through opposites or polarities, right? So when you know what bad is, you better know and appreciate what good is. But in the fifth dimension, there is no polarity, okay? There is no contrast. And so it's the higher frequencies of love and peace and truth and bliss and joy and all that. And so there's a lot of us who are choosing now. We've grown to the point where we don't need the negative. We don't need to learn through pain, okay? And so if you're willing to do the work, which I always talk about, it doesn't just happen. It's like working out. You can't get strong unless you hit the gym or do your workout. The same goes with this. And so, number one, it comes down to intention. If your intention is to open up through prayer, so that's you inviting in divine forces. And I always say, number one, you include source, whatever you call source. I call it God, call it universe, call it supreme being, whatever you want. It's the energy of love, okay? Call in source, then call in your higher self. And your higher self is that aspect of you that still remains a non-physical, but has a connection in your higher chakras to the physical self. So you can embody your higher self. So you're operating through that versus solely through ego. And then call in your team in spirit and ask them to help you to ascend to the degree that's highest and best for you. That's going to be different for all of us. There's a lot of light workers out there right now. If you're tuning in, I bet you are one. Light workers don't mean just somebody who does spiritual work. A light worker could be a stay-at-home parent. It could be somebody who works for the post office. It could be somebody who works at the grocery store. It's somebody who is here to bring in more light, to raise the frequency, the consciousness of the planet back to a higher place of love. And we do that through kindness and through loving, generous acts of service. Okay, so I know I got way off tangent. Honestly, this could be a whole Facebook Live topic. So I'm going to leave it at that for now. But if you're feeling guided, I would say pray and meditate and ask your guides to help you shift into that higher ascension.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. So Nadine is wondering if you can communicate with those who have passed who don't speak English.
I talk to dogs and cats and horses, and they don't speak English, right? Yes. The answer is yes. They don't. There's no words. What's going on is it's energy. There's no bodies, so there's no voices, so I'm not hearing words. What's happening is spirits project their energy into my mind and body, and then it's my frame of reference. So I might hear something in my own inner voice, right, from a pet or a foreign language, right? Or it's playing charades. It's like showing me a vision. So that's universal. I don't need to know that language to be able to see what a dog is if they're trying to communicate dog, right? So usually it's not been a problem. I'm really, my readings, I get a lot of names because I'm very auditory, okay? We all work differently. So if somebody had a foreign name that I would never get, like that's common. So they might have to sounds like this, right? Okay, I don't know why I just threw that out there.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
So the next question came in live from Mary, and she was wondering if a soul has made harmful decisions with their free will, what happens when they pass? Are they in the same place as everyone else, and can they rehabilitate?
So, yes, they're forgiven. It's about self-forgiveness, number one. We play judge and jury when we cross over. We're held accountable. There's no hiding. 100% we pick up where we leave off, and we're not off the hook. However, like I said, we're not in trouble, but we usually feel disappointed with our choices, and we want to redeem them. We want to balance out the negative karma that we caused others. And so, especially if it was not part of a soul contract, it was solely free will. So something to keep in mind, when you make choices, you always want to ensure they're based from a place of love and truth, not from a place of fear, so that your free will doesn't get in the way and cause you more problems.
Thanks. So Trisha is wondering, can spirits show their faces in pictures? I think she means photos. Do you think she means
Yes.
photos?
Yeah, photos. Yeah. Yes. Yes, they can. And I've seen a lot of people have shown me pictures of orbs where you can see faces in them. It's a real gift if you capture a spirit orb or face. But I've seen plenty of them. I've seen apparitions like outlines of bodies. One woman I will never forget showed me a picture. Her father had a recliner he sat in all the time, and he had a cane. And when he passed away, she took the recliner to her house. Somehow they captured a picture of something, but the recliner was in the background, and her dad's entire body apparition was there with the cane, with his hand on the cane, and it was like clear as day. It was amazing. And so anyways, that was his way of saying hi.
I love that.
Yeah, right?
So Diane wrote in and she explains that she's had a lot of sickness and death in a really short amount of time. And she's feeling kind of frustrated, and she's wondering, when we do experience periods like that where we experience so much loss or so much sickness, what is that maybe meant to teach us, direct, or offer?
So like anything, we have different lessons with these soul contracts. So maybe you're on the end of this where all the illness and sickness around you, your opportunity is to be of service to others. You're there to get to show up and take care of them. Maybe their lesson in the contract is to receive. I know a lot of times, end of life, it's hard, and especially those of us who were stubborn and did not do a great job of receiving help, and it was pretty uncomfortable, we're forced to receive, right, the care from others. So there's all different reasons. You know, it really comes down to just trusting that, like, it's not a coincidence if you're recognizing it, and not to get really attached to the story, like to judge it as bad or negative. You know, there's gifts in everything. And so I think the way to shift that, because it's out of your control, if everyone around you is not well and you're suffering, it's only your resistance to that is what's causing the suffering. So it's saying, praying, asking to see through God's eyes, help me find the gift, help me understand what is it I need to learn from this, or show me how I may serve. What is my role in showing up in this situation?
Thank you. Rolyat asks about signs, saying, I'm aware of a few I receive and feel, but how do I dial deeper within the messages of the signs? Within the signs.
Right. So the signs, in my experience, are simply Spirit's way of getting your attention. Okay? That's just like to basically say, I'm here, pay attention. The next step to take it one, level deeper is to then inquire, get curious, and ask, okay, Mom, I know you just flickered the lights, or I just saw the hummingbird, Dad, I know that's you. What do you want me to know? And then you have to quiet your mind to receive what that is. It might not come as a dialogue in your head. It might be a feeling. It might be a vision. It might be, you put that out there, you sit in meditation, you get nothing. But then 3 times in the next 5 hours, you hear the exact same message through different, sources. And that is, usually they talk to us in 3. They're trying to hit us over the head and say, hey, here's what we're trying to get across to you. So it's really about just being aware and being open. And then you'll have, it's a knowing. You just kind of know, aha, that's what they're trying to say, and trusting it.
So the next question comes from Cindy, and she is asking how you address or respond to the naysayers in your life, both personally and professionally, who don't believe in your work or the other side.
That's a good question. So when I first started this, I took it personally because I wanted everybody to believe as much as I believed. And I would get very frustrated when I would provide so much evidence and it still wasn't enough. And people still found holes in it or ways to debunk what I was saying. Okay, so I pretty quickly realized the only person I was hurting was myself at that point. Because some people it's changing your mind about it. It's saying, okay, we're all at different points on our path. Some of us are born believing. It's like the veil was lifted when we came in, and we are that much more advanced in just, it's a knowing. And a lot of people were born where they forget. It's for a reason, okay? They're in this world to remember. But you have to trust that as long as you know the truth, that's all that matters. It doesn't matter what other people think or say or do. And your job is to really just walk in faith and show them by example of living in faith and trust what that looks like. They will either be inspired by it and open up and listen, or they will be, repelled and fall away. And so I think it really just comes down to letting go of anything external. It doesn't matter, right? So I get it, but it's got to let it be.
Thank you.
So Betty's wondering, she wants to know what can she do to encourage her cat who passed away to come for visitations, but like in general, if we want people, cats, loved ones.
Sure. You ask, that's it. You let go. You detached. It's just like if you really want a friend to join you, to go out somewhere, all you can do is invite them. You can't control whether or not they say yes. So it's the same with spirits, intention. You know how many times I've asked my dad to visit me in my dreams and he doesn't. But I get a guide, or I get another departed loved one, and they're not always available to project their energy into your dream state or into your day. It takes a tremendous amount of energy for them to do it. The other piece is, it's never enough for us. We always want more. That's our ego. And for spirit, if they did it once and it's been 6 years, they're going to feel like that was 6 minutes ago. And you're going to feel like it's an eternity ago. Because time is very different. It's not linear in the spirit world, right? So I always just say, to cover your bases, you've done your part, free will, invite them in. And really feel that appreciation and love for them. That's like a magnet to their energy. And usually at some point they show up to acknowledge you were heard.
So Bridget is asking, why do we get intuitive hits on things that we can't really change or prevent?
Sometimes it's to prepare you. It's a reminder of what you contracted. It's a heads up. It's kind of like deja vu. When that happens, it's a reminder of your soul contracted this to happen at that particular point in the journey, and here it is. Okay, so sometimes we're not meant to prevent or change an outcome. Sometimes we are. Sometimes in readings they give you information, so it's a heads up so that you can alter it, because it is a co-created deal and the future is not set in stone. But if it is intended to happen and you get a knowing, and like 9/11, tons of clients have shared with me, they had hits, it was going to happen the day before, the week before, but yet why would they be given this? As maybe a glimpse into the bigger picture, the bigger grand plan. Maybe that, was something that was a possibility. It doesn't mean it was necessarily definitely going to happen, but it was a possibility based on free will, and they were being prepared on some level to deal with it.
So Jean is our next question, and she asks, is it possible for a part of a loved one's spirit that has passed to reincarnate in a relative's newborn?
Oh yeah, that's what reincarnation is. And most times we travel in soul groups. So if your grandfather passes away and then you have a grandson, it's very possible if he needs to jump right back in, and for whatever reason, he may incarnate as your grandchild. Most souls don't want to jump back in. It's like graduating from high school, and then do you really want to go back into kindergarten and start all over? Or third grade, or wherever you pick up where you leave off? No, you don't. You want to have summer vacation, which is some time in the afterlife to rest, restore, reflect, and then prepare. And that could be decades. Because again, time isn't the same in the spirit world as it is here.
It's kind of a good bridge into Lori's question. She's asking what different types of jobs would spirits have on the other side.
It depends. Just like how we all have different jobs in this world, there's so many. So it's a mirror of this world. Some people are going to work with children. Some people are going to work as healers. Some people are going to be in school, advancing their wisdom, enlightenment, and not working, because we don't need to make money in the spirit world. So you basically do whatever is going to help you grow and evolve. And sometimes you become a spirit guide for a period of time to a living loved one who's still in body, right? So there's all that. Yeah, it goes on and on.
That's great. So Carol wonders, do the different phases of the moon affect visits from our loved ones who have passed?
I'm not an expert in astrology, so I can only speak from my own experience. A full moon heightens your intuition. And so in my experience, yes, we are more, it's like our antennas are up and it's easier to receive. It's almost like the veil is thinner, and that's why there's more kind of frenetic stuff happening. You feel your emotions are heightened, your intuition is heightened. And so visitations will be increased, yes. But that's all I know, is the full moon.
Thanks.
Janet asks if your readings are like a snapshot in time that could change if the reading were given a week or a month earlier or later.
It depends. It depends on free will. So if something is destined to happen, meaning there's certain things in your contract that no matter what are going to keep showing up until you get it right. You can say no. You have free will. You can resist it, and you take detour after detour. But eventually, it keeps showing up for you to say yes. So if it's destined, it's going to come up in the reading whether I read you that day or you move your appointment to a month later. There's other things that could be altered. Let's say you made a bad choice, and had it gotten to you earlier, maybe you would have thought, twice about it and made a different choice based out of love or your higher self, and it would have altered, right, the path. So it could go either way.
Thanks. So Sharon is wondering, can a spirit in a dream be reaching out, scared or asking for help? What if the spirit connecting in a dream is upset?
So sometimes it's a visitation, and the spirit is, they have feelings. They have residual energy that crosses over with them. If, let's say, they regret, let's say a suicide regrets their choice and dying by suicide. And so they may come through expressing that to you. They're fine. If they're coming to you, generally, they're in a good place, but they're trying to be real and heal and finish up any unfinished business. But sometimes I've found it's not really a visitation. It's more your own subconscious mind processing your own unconscious guilt or anger or grief, and you're projecting your feelings onto what looks like the character of that departed loved one in your dream. So you really have to get real with yourself. Was that really a visitation, or is this my stuff subconsciously acting out, releasing, surfacing in my dream state?
So the next question comes from Maria, and she's saying that she's learning to read tarot cards and is wondering what your experience is with them. She knows that Ouija boards can have some dark energy, and she's wondering if the same can be said for tarot cards because she wants to stay in the light.
With any tool you use for divination, I would say to you, it's your intention behind the tool. It's not the tool. So Ouija boards aren't bad, but they're intended as a game. And so I had an angel board because I felt like it was better because I had a bad experience with the Ouija board. So it's intention. Tarot cards are neutral, and it depends what energy you give it. And I think they're great. Angel cards, tarot cards. It's just a tool, just like my automatic writing was for me. Some people use a pendulum. Some people use psychometry where they hold metal objects of a departed loved one to read the spirit or the energy. It doesn't matter as long as your intention is to do good and do for God, right? To stay in light and love, it should be fine.
Great. And this will be our last question. This is from Tammy. She actually had a reading with you last month, and she says thank you.
Good.
And she is asking if you could explain a little more about spirit guides versus our deceased loved ones who are by our side. And are the spirit guides higher or more enlightened? Like, what's the difference between those two?
Great question. So departed loved ones are departed loved ones, and we're all at different places of enlightenment. And so then there's spirit guides. Sometimes your spirit guides are departed loved ones, but they have to have gone through a proper training with higher guides and angels to responsibly guide you, because there's rules. They have to honor your free will. They can't necessarily spill the beans on everything. Like, there's some things you need to, experience and find out for yourself. So there's rules. But spirit guides in general, whether it's a departed loved one or a higher angelic being, are guides that are assigned to you for a particular lesson or chapter or period of time in your life, okay? And then there's different levels of guides, and then there are angels. And angels are with us at all times and all ways for anyone who calls on them, and they're just God's messengers of love. And they're there to protect us, comfort us, steer us out of harm's way if it's not meant to be. And again, I always say the departed loved ones are your cheerleaders. They're your loved ones who are in your corner, cheering you on, checking in with you, reminding you you're loved. They're not gone. They're still with you. And so I have a whole diagram on is it on the website still?
I think it is.
Yeah, I for one of my books, I created this diagram, and it showed the different levels of the astral plane, the upper astral, the higher heavens, and it shows where all these angels and guides and ascended masters are placed. And so we'll figure out if that's on my site. That would be something you could look at. Mm-hmm. Okay, that went fast. Wow. Okay. Thank you for everybody who wrote in your questions. I love it. Keep writing in and join us on the next Facebook Live. It will be sometime next month. Stay connected through all my social media, my website, RebeccaRosen.com, my newsletter. I've been guided to put out a lot of content to help those of you who are, as we talked about earlier, on your ascension path and want to grow and evolve your gifts to whatever degree is right for you. So I love doing this, love connecting with you all. Thanks for all your support always, and until we meet again, wishing you brightest blessings and all love.